Hey King of the Nerds, this is what you think a nerd looks like. I'm Kelly Carlton. I live in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and this is what being a nerd looks like to me. I am an avid podcaster. I worked on a podcast called Not Effing Cute about video games and the gaming industry, and also currently working on a podcast called the Just a Couple of G's podcast. I am the resident troll in any podcast I'm on. I'm filthy mouthed, I'm inappropriate, I pretty much say any sex comment that's on my mind, and I get in trouble almost on a weekly basis. I love streaming games online, and my favorite thing to do is to strap on elf ears and play Magic the Gathering with people all over the country. When I'm not podcasting and gaming, I'm filming comic book reviews on my YouTube channel and offending everybody in the process. I love everything about cosplaying. I love everything about conventions. I love meeting people, and although I'm not the person that could sew my own costume, I piece it together and I try my damnedest to get out there with the rest of them and show my fanfare for the character that I love so much. And for that reason, I go by the nickname Effin' Pryde. Kitty Pryde has been my favorite comic book character since I was a little kid. I was a little brown-haired girl who thought I was Kitty Pryde. She's my size, she's my age, she's adorable, she can phase through stuff, she has a pet dragon. So my very first cosplay was that of Kitty Pryde. Growing up, I was a geek only out of necessity. We were dirt poor, and our TV was Peasant Vision television, so I watched Star Trek The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Sequest, Xena Warrior Princess, Hercules. I read cheap comic books we found at the local comic shop for 25 cents, so I read Wildcats and Thundercats and X-Men. This is my very first convention cosplay. I found this slutty firefighter costume and it looked a lot like Kitty Pryde, so my twin and I made it happen. And Chicago Comic-Con, she got so much attention, I became an addict. Now, in school, I was very smart. I definitely did well in classes. I took honors courses, and I went to community college. I don't believe being a nerd means you have to be a well-scholared individual. I feel like being a nerd and being a geek just means you're passionate about stuff and you are super obsessed with sci-fi and comics and video games, and I feel like that is me. My IQ is probably no more than any average person. I did well in school. I graduated with honors. I got 2 scholarships to go to college, and they paid me to go to school. They paid for my books, and they paid for my classes. And after 2 years, and I got my AA in English, I did what every idiot does, and I dropped out of school and took a break and decided to go live life. I moved to Canada, I moved back home, and all the while, for the last, 8 years of my life, my occupation has been that of a Hooters girl. And it's completely ridiculous to see a Hooters girl as a geek. But in 2010, I convinced myself that the best thing to do would be to enter the Hooters Halloween costume contest nationwide across the US as this costume, Kitty Pryde of the X-Men. And the girls I worked with thought I was Sailor Moon, and the managers laughed and thought it was silly. And I banded together the internet because votes were based on online voting through Facebook. And I took home a win nationwide against calendar girls with huge fan bases because everybody knows that geeks rule the internet. And it was completely humbling. And I didn't realize how competitive I actually was until that very moment when I won and I cried like a baby. And Kitty Pryde ruled Hooters online for at least a minute. It was the coolest, one of the coolest things that ever happened in my life. And from that, I have gotten to meet people in different media groups, and I've gotten to travel to different conventions. And I was in the 2012 Girls of Geek calendar. And why I was there was because of my huge television addiction. I'd say I work part-time, I sleep part-time. TV is my full-time job. I record at least 40 plus hours of television a week, whether it's Game of Thrones, Spartacus, Battlestar Galactica. I know it's over, but it could come back. Maybe Blood and Chrome. Anything built in space, made for space, on sci-fi, on HBO, if it's got blood, if it's got gore, if it's got a nerd base, Walking Dead, I'm there. And I think that because of that, I am not just a comic book geek, and I'm not just a gaming geek, and I'm not just a sci-fi geek. I feel like I'm a very well-rounded geek. except for the fact that I work at Hooters and I am shamed every day in my job. And when I go into the geek community, I'm shamed for working at Hooters. Like, I feel like no matter where I go, I'm a little bit of an outcast. I went to a screening of Serenity for Joss Whedon's charity Equality Now, and I was too shy to go up on stage and join in the trivia fun, but from my seat, way in the back, hiding from everybody else, I was whispering the answers to every single trivia question to my boyfriend, and I would have won this challenge if I had been down there and man enough to get up and walk down in front of a bunch of geeks and profess my love about a show that I care so much about. And that is why I would say that a debate I could win would be that of something television related, definitely Firefly. If it's not Firefly, I would say Battlestar Galactica would be the next thing I'm obsessively great about and could win a debate over, and Star Trek The Next Generation. And for that reason, shows like Gargoyles completely enthralled me as a child, because I had my favorite voice actors from The Next Generation or from Voyager acting and doing the voices of some of my favorite animated characters. Demona was Deanna Troi, and Coldstone was Worf, and Xanatos was Jonathan Frakes, one of my favorite actors ever because he is the very dapper William Riker. And I think those shows would be something I am incredibly passionate about and could win a debate over because I am completely in love with them. Relationship-wise, I am in a committed relationship of about a year and some change with one of the co-hosts for my Just a Couple of G's podcast. We bonded over comic books and cosplay and comic book conventions, and he is one of the funniest guys I know and my best friend. And I have to say, it's one of the greatest relationships I've ever been in, to finally find a match in somebody that is just as weird as me and enjoys just the most bizarre humor and ridiculous antics that I do, and is as nerdy as I am. He's the first guy that's ever been as nerdy as me. I'd say to find out my best and worst qualities, you'd have to ask my twin sister, because she has to be one of the most judgmental people I've ever met when it comes to the topic of me. She would say that I'm a little bit flaky and I'm highly inappropriate. I don't fit into family gatherings and I tend to embarrass people because my mouth moves faster than my mind and I end up going for the joke instead of going for what's appropriate. So when it comes to interviewing people like David Brevik over Marvel Heroes, I ended up making him blush and giggle like a schoolgirl because I asked him if there was a secret level to get into Thor's bedroom. And I think for that reason, I tend to be memorable, but I tend to be completely inappropriate. And people like me and or hate me at the same time. My best qualities would be that I am the most honest person you've ever met. If I find $20 on the floor, I will return it to the person it's owed. I can't lie to save my life, and for that reason, I don't even try. And I am a loyal friend. The word nerd brings up an imagery of a pimply-faced kid with braces in his mouth and homeroom glasses. I believe your nerd status shouldn't be measured by your IQ or diminished by your cup size. Let me be the next person to sit on the throne of games and prove to you that I am the one nerd to rule them all.